And we're here. I feel like I got a bunch of extra oxygen and stuff going on up here, which is good.
A little buzzky.
Right. But breath work, man. You're the breath work guy. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about being that guy? I know you're much more than that.
Multifaceted
It's so right.
being.
It's so hard because I think about whenever I'm doing podcasts, I'm always like, how do I start these? Because I've heard so many people say, well, you don't want to limit somebody by saying that they're this or they only do that. How do I get people to understand what you like, what you're interested in? And here's a question that I've always wondered. When people think about breath work, a lot of times they're like, it's just breath, bro.
Yeah.
Relax. So how do you deal with that? And how do you not deal with it, but I know that there's 10 billion things to it.
Yeah.
And so for someone who's kind of like, breath though?
Breath. I've been breathing my whole life.
Right.
What could breath work do for me?
Yeah.
Okay. So most people, 90% of people aren't breathing right? They go throughout their life shallow, breathing into their chest, which keeps them in a stressful state. Now, if the quality of your emotions determine the quality of your life, learning how to breathe so you can control your emotions is one of the most important things you can do. And the beautiful thing about the breath is it's a way that you can directly hack into your nervous system. And if you ask me, that's one of the most powerful things with anxiety and depression on an absolute rise. If you can take over that, that's one of the most powerful things you can do because it changes the way you show up in life, right? If you're going to sell something, you're going to meet a girl and you're feeling stressed, you're probably not going to sell or you're probably not going to get that connection that you truly want. But when you're calm, you're open, and you're ready to connect, that you can do with the breath, it's one of the most powerful things ever. So I think breath work, people need to understand, you've been taught what to eat. You've been taught how to drink, but you've never been taught how to breathe. Now, every emotion has a corresponding breathing pattern. So when you feel a certain way, you're breathing a certain way, but it works both ways. So if you change the way you're breathing, you change your mental and emotional, physical state. So no matter what stress you're going through, if you can take control of the breath, you can take control of your mind.
And that's interesting because I feel like there's a lot of people that don't realize, there's people that realize, hey, the way that we eat is probably not great. And you realize there's this whole matrix. In matrix, I feel like the root word I've seen it called or translated as pattern or even mother, these other words. So if we're talking about breath, it's like people realize, the gist is that people realize, okay, food's messed up. The system's kind of sketchy in the way that it is. But then there's another level to it where it's like the way you breathe. And we were just talking before we started about Shaolin monks.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure that they have breath as a part of their practice. And there's so many Eastern philosophies that focus on that. There's so many different types of breathing. There's the yogic, the breath of fire. Yeah. What is it?
Wim Hof.
Each slit.
Alternate nostril breathing. Nadi Sodhana. I might have butchered that, but that just means breathing through opposite nostrils.
Yeah.
And it elicits different parts of your brain. So you said about the Eastern monks. The crazy thing is throughout all religions, in all cultures, the breath was always mentioned. Now, the breath is synonymous with spirit. So look at that, right? So spirit derives from the term spirar, which means to breathe. So if you can connect deeper with that life force energy, you can connect to something greater than you. Now, if the Buddhist monks can sit in freezing temperatures, put a wet blanket on them, and basically steam the wetness off and stay warm in negative temperatures, there's something there, right? And we haven't been taught what's there. So I believe I'm all for stress management. I'm all for regulation of your emotions. But what I'm really into is tapping into altered states of consciousness. So you can download those things coming into you. So you can tap into the creative states and bring it to reality. So we're creative beings. Universe, the game. This is a game. And one of the best toggles for this game is the breath. So yeah, it's super exciting.
So how do you use it?
How do you use it?
Yeah.
Okay. at the most basic level, there's two branches to the breath.
The levels of the game here.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, man, come on.
There's breath awareness, which isn't controlling your breath. It's becoming fully aware, following it into the stomach, into the chest. And as it leaves you, what muscles are moving? What sensations do you feel as this breath is moving through you? And then there's conscious breathing. That's where you're basically breathing in certain patterns to do certain things to your body. For example, if somebody needs energy, there's an ancient Sufi technique that literally energizes your body like nothing. And it's super easy. It's a 4 active inhales through the nose and make it a poof sound. If you do that for a minute, poof, it's weird, but it will energize your body. Okay. So the inhale speeds up the heart rate. Exhale slows it down. So if you need to slow down your mind, you're stressed out, make longer exhales than inhales. You need energy, you do more vigorous inhales and slower exhales. It's all about finding the balance of breath.
So what you're proposing for me, how this applies to my life, is don't scroll on social media or go on YouTube when you're stressed. Just breathe.
Just breathe. Exactly, right?
And then you feel better, essentially. And it's not just about better, you feel more harmonious in a sense, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's the goal. Because then when you feel harmonious within yourself, then you can actually do the things that you want to do.
Yeah.
So I think we've named it so many different things in our culture. Some call it anxiety, some call it frustration, some call it overwhelm.
Yeah.
But really what we're talking about is a way to get in there and just let that go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that stress response was designed for a reason.
Yeah.
For when you're getting chased by a predator, you can get away. You're not going to be thinking about peace.
What about them bears though?
Cradle position.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but you need to move. You need to move your body so it's activating you. But when you're in a stressful everyday, you're sitting in traffic, you can't move your body. That's not going to help you. So you need to learn how to take control of that stress response. So in your nervous system, you got the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. Sympathetic is your fight or flight, that runaway response, right? Or you got the parasympathetic, which is relax and restore, rest and digest. So when you're stressed out on a daily basis, you're creating sickness in the body, right? So learning how to tap into the nervous system is one of the most important things you do, okay? Because think about this. When you're stressed out, doesn't it seem a lot harder to handle small things that would be easy if you're in a state of peace?
Yeah.
Right? So look at it like this. It's like an airplane. When you elevate yourself, your emotional state, the buildings that once seemed huge are now just tiny little things that you can go right over. But when you're on the level of stress, it seems so hard to face everyday problems. So
It can be easy.
Yeah, it can be easy. You can flow through life instead of resisting it.
And that's so hard, I think, to tell people is like somebody that's really struggling to say, it could be easy.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just got to have someone tell you, it could be easy. You know what I mean? As hard as that is to hear, because sometimes when you get triggered, because I can see someone getting triggered by saying, well, life could be easy because maybe their life isn't easy in their perspective.
Yeah.
But to remind them that if you feel like your life's hard, there might be aspects that you're resisting even in your life, but that you can take a different perspective. And I think that's, you have these different industries. You have self-help, self-development, self-realization. You have, what else do we have? We have manifestation, these other things. And I feel like they all start with the same baseline.
Branches of the same tree.
Right. It's like you're unhappy. You feel like your life's hard and you want it to be
better.
And so what we're saying here is that not only can you change your life, but you can get yourself quickly into the state where you're able to almost access that intellectual reasoning that you can't, right, when you're in that state. Because I think that's part of it too, is when we're stressed, we can't actually access just this state right now where I'm just calm and I feel like it's easy to think.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, it's not easy to think on purpose because you're trying to use your body for those situations where you're running away or you're fighting and this type of thing.
Yeah.
And especially I think it's also difficult too because, as much as I love like UFC and I don't love it, but I think it's entertaining to say the least. And you see all these things that I feel like I haven't even realized when you're watching something like that, how that can affect you. Like that can affect your state. So it's almost learning to become aware of what is also getting you to that place. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Where you're stressed, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes it just happens.
Yeah.
You're there.
Because
So
you're in the storm.
Right. So what's the solution? It's like you can run away from the storm or avoid the storm. You know, there's different types of Buddhism. You got the Mahayana, Buddhism, Theravada, and they all have different perspectives. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to avoid? Are you going to integrate? And so sometimes you can't avoid. I feel like with life, because things just happen that are out of your control. And I think that's one thing to just realize. But you can have a system or like a set thing that you do. Just like if you want to get jacked, you're going to go work out, right?
Formulas.
Or you're going to work out, or you're going to do just different training systems. You're going to work with your body. Not, breath is one, I think. And then there's also like, have you ever dove into like Qigong, kind of martial arts? Yeah. Other types of movement
is
too.
medicine.
Yeah.
Think about this. I always like to look at nature for lessons, right? Because when you understand the basics of life, you can understand the complexities of life. When you take it down to the simplest forms, it's the most easy to understand. So water, in its essence, when it's flowing, self-cleansing, it's clean, it's good. But the moment it's still and stagnant, it becomes a breeding ground for disease and bugs, right? So the breath is the movement, and it brings flow to the blood. When you move your body, you start to release endorphins and feel good chemicals. But when you match it with the breath, you become one. You harmonize the mind, the body, and the soul. And when you can do that, you can step into life as a whole person and not divided. Now your head isn't fighting your heart, right? Now you can step in the way you want to show up. But how do you do that? You root yourself into routines that bring you to a peaceful state. So most people, they wake up and think about all the things that pissed them off yesterday, all the stuff they got to deal with today, and then they act from that place. Now we have these thought feeling loops where you think this thing and you feel a certain way, and then you think things equal to that feeling, and then you take action from that or disempowered place, right? So if you can take control of that with the breath, because the way you breathe directly affects how you feel. The way you feel directly affects how you think. And then you take action from an empowered place of gratitude, knowing you can handle the problems that come your way because you can handle what's going on in here. You talk about the law of correspondence. As above, so below, as within, so without. So if you can master the inner world by mastering your breath, by mastering movement, you can master your outer world.
And that kind of aligns with a lot of universal principles, like you're just talking about law of correspondence principle. It's one of the 7 Hermetic principles studied in Hermeticism. And I think these are just things that we see around the world that Hermeticism has kind of nailed down into, okay, there's 7, but you can look at other traditions. Like one of them is principle of cause and effect. Karma.
Yeah.
They've been saying that. So these principles are kind of hidden in other cultures and traditions as well. And when you're talking about movement, it reminds me, I just kind of got this idea that maybe with movement, what we're experiencing is one of the principles of correspondence. And it's principle, I think it's called the principle of vibration. Everything vibrates. It's also something that the reciprocal system that I talk about, that not a lot of people know about, that's there's space, time, and time, space, and that they're overlapped.
Okay.
And so what I'm thinking about is in his system, he says that everything is motion, everything. And that aligns perfectly with the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything vibrates is technically how that is. And so maybe when we are struggling, part of it might be, well, maybe if we get moving, that might increase our motion. Inherently, you could say, you could also translate that to frequency.
Yeah.
So somehow maybe movement in itself is kind of like medicine. And I'm thinking about it, it's kind of paradoxical because you'll have Buddhist monks who just sit still. And it's like, that's the opposite of movement. But, I think they've mastered the mind enough, or they've mastered the outer world to not be bothered by it as much. So they're able to sit. And that's what they want to do. Because it's like that they found that is the most enjoyable thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for people to realize that could be a thing that's enjoyable.
Yeah.
Sitting still could be a thing that's enjoyable. You know, I mean, have you ever been at a point in your life where you kind of felt like that? Where it was, because I know I have.
What exactly?
Where like somebody told me that sitting still meditating, it's like, okay, why the hell would I want to do that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What's the point? What does that do for me? You know, and that's kind of the opposite of movement. We were just talking about movement, but kind of slowing down.
Yeah. Think about it like that, slowing down, because you're not still. Your blood is still flowing.
Mm-hmm.
And think of the calm, trickling creek. That's so much more relaxing than the rushing river that's ripping down trees, right? So it's still moving, but it's slowing it down. And people think they're just sitting there. They're not just sitting there. They're in other dimensions, man. When you get into the place where you can completely relax and you are no longer your body, but you are everything around you, your breath becomes a direct connection to something higher. You can literally tap into alpha brainwave states, theta brainwave states, where you're now open to the united flow of consciousness, where all ideas stem from, where every memory and every future event is.
Mm-hmm.
That's where prophecies come from. That's where literally knowing, you ever had that feeling where you just know something is true? You don't have to read it. It resonates in every cell of your body. That's where they're at. They're not just sitting there, but it's blissful. If you've never been able to fully sit still and feel that bliss, that is something next level. Because look at it like this. Every breath you take in is chi, is prana, mana, life force energy, right? We call it electromagnetism here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Subtle energy.
Yeah.
Every breath you breathe in, it's coming into you. But when you're stressed, you're tensed, you're closed, it's like a hard rock bottom floor. When it rains and hits that rock bottom, it doesn't get absorbed into the soil. But when the soil's open, relaxed, that water gets sucked up. So that's your breath. If you're relaxed and open, now you're absorbing life force energy that can heal your body, that can literally tap you into elevated states of consciousness. That is next level stuff, man.
So elevated states of consciousness.
Yes.
Oh man, that's been a journey in itself to try and figure out those specifically. You know, I had the declassified documents on the gateway process.
Mm-hmm.
I've done some of them. I haven't done them all. I really stopped doing them before they got super interesting. So I need to go back and do those. But that's kind of what the gateway process was. It was certain 3-letter agencies studying the altered states that the Monroe Institute was reaching.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what the declassified documents are. It's like, what was their analysis of it, essentially? And they found that you could basically reach the state of the absolute and you could click in and out of time.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we're saying altered states of consciousness, we're kind of saying that you can do things that are, we are saying, we're not kind of, that you can do things that are way out of what people might think as ordinary reality.
Yeah. This is Universe the Game. We're talking about boss levels. Because you get to a
There's
point.
bosses in the levels
There
too,
is
probably.
bosses in the levels, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Because I've come into contact with beings that just blow my mind. And we'll get into that. But these altered states of consciousness, you're tuning out of the 3D world and tuning into something higher, something that's always existing, but these 3D senses aren't tapping into it. Then you open up to that sixth sense. It's been hinted out throughout all cultures, throughout all religions, and through movies all throughout life. Yeah. And in this place, you have access to knowledge that you wouldn't ordinarily have, and to beings, and to guidance. So I believe what the 3-letter agency is hiding from most people is something that could change their lives on the most profound levels.
I think a lot of people are starting to figure it out though, which is good.
Yeah.
You know, we're getting there. I think if you looked at what we thought 20 years ago about the nature of reality versus now, I think we've made some progress, which is good.
Yeah.
And I think that the information's out there. You can get it. You know, when it comes to breath and it comes to the nature of reality, even I think most of what humans know is on the internet. Not all of it, of course. There's going to be secret traditions
Yeah.
that we don't know about. But I think we even know a lot about them now through the internet, which is interesting. So, you find that basically many of these mystical traditions, to give an example, we think are secret, but they had to basically go secret. And I'm talking about like basically any other tradition besides Catholicism and Christianity. Because, if you did anything in the West there was a time period, I know it's hard for people to match it sometimes, but there's a time period where if you talked about anything besides, the rules of Christian traditions and however you want to put that, you can say it in many different ways. I think that's why we don't really, most people don't know about Hermeticism or maybe even Eastern traditions.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's like not even secret, but like these Eastern traditions like Buddhism and Hinduism, I think they're not more prevalent in Western society because for such a long time period, you couldn't talk about them.
Yeah, 100%.
You
were cast away. You were literally blocked out from your society if you believed in these certain type of things. Or worse, killed.
Right. Which is not good.
No, it's not fun.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, it's the age of information. And now we have access to these things that are so different to what we've known. I think the main difference between Western and Eastern philosophy is the outward in and the inward out. Eastern is all about mastering this inner world so you can connect to something greater. And Western seems to be the top down control, right? So that's where I think the main differences is. And where I have found the most profound experiences is starting within. For example, entering states of oneness. I think you asked me about feelings and things that just blew my mind. It's entering states of oneness where I no longer feel my body, but I feel all the energy around me, where I feel like I am one with everything. And in those moments, having answers to any question I asked. How do you do that? Because my brain didn't have that answer before, right? So one of the most expansive, craziest experiences I've ever had is when I was doing breath work in the woods. It was my first experience with it. I also had a little taste of a psychedelic mixed with it, but it wasn't a lot of psychedelics. It was a lot of breath work. Did the breath work. And at the end, I found myself in a place where I had instant answers to anything I asked. And I asked, of course, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Something we all want to know. And I always thought it was an occupation, something you have to do. But a voice in my head, not mine, says, you are to be a breath of fresh air everywhere you go. And when I heard that, it rung true in every cell of my body. And I knew your purpose isn't an occupation. It's a way of being, something you can do throughout every branch of your life. And when I understood that we can all tap into that we all have access to that life animating force that's within me is also in you, that is so powerful because now you live in oneness instead of duality. It's not good and bad. It's all of it. It's a circle of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the most powerful thing ever.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking back to the question I asked, and now people are going to be like, "Are you talking about negative secret societies?" My brain is like, "What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?" Like, you can find the secrets in plain. They're in plain sight. They're out there, and that's why I've kind of taken the path that I have. It's like I just study all these materials because I feel like the keys are in them. We don't have to look for. I wrote a book, 10 Secrets of Awakening. So that's why I'm talking about secrets because. It's funny, actually, and that's not why I'm talking about it, but it's funny I'm talking about secrets. And I'm like, there are secrets that are like hidden from us in society, but they're all available. You just got to find them.
Yeah.
I don't think that the information, thankfully, the information is not kept away like they were for a long time period. I know we're going back to history a lot today, but there was also a time period where all the information was in libraries and most people didn't have access to them.
Yeah.
There probably still is information in certain libraries that we don't have access to.
For sure.
But to unlock the ability, and there's always going to be secret things. There is. That's just how humans work. It seems as though there's never going to be a time where everyone knows everything. So I just watched a video by what I'm thinking of with this is those that know Mind Hacking Happiness, you heard of him?
I know. I've never heard of him.
He's
Sounds
on
like a
TikTok.
great guy.
He's a really interesting guy. And he was talking about the Denver airport and how there's underground stuff under there that it might end up being the first extraterrestrial space port from there. And it's just kind of like, that's a whole other level of the game.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's been people in the spiritual community. You know, when I'm talking about secret things, I think what my point was is some of the most mind-blowing stuff that I would consider secret is actually not like a society. It's actually some of the stuff that Corey Goode was saying. If you've heard of Corey Goode, you know, he talks about the secret space program.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that blew my mind the most.
Yeah.
So there could be basically a whole bunch of stuff going on out there that we have no idea about.
That could be. Is
there is a certain amount of it, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's hard though, because for me as someone who I want to give people the truth, it's so hard for me when I have basically someone's testimony to go off of and that's it. I think it's, you know, that's been some of the most profound words that we've received. This is not a new way of transmitting information, just someone's testimony, hence Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, a whole religion is based off of someone's, which we can't meet.
Yeah.
Which is one of the downfalls, I think, of it. So when it comes to, you know, things that blow my mind, I have heard about that for years. And, you know, when we were talking about altered states, I think we can kind of almost get there. Remote view. We know remote viewing is real from 3-letter agencies, and they've, you know, this is not really esoteric anymore. Esoteric meaning like only a small people know about it. Like they've come out and said, hey, we've done remote viewing on, you know, other countries, and we did this during wars, and this is real, and this is happening, and this is documented. So when we talk about remote viewing, it's just people don't realize that it's a thing. Yeah. So you ever remote viewed or done anything like that?
Yes.
Okay. I figured you had because you said, you know, you've met beings, so you would have to do some sort of remote
my
viewing,
gosh. It's Nick Z. You don't understand. It is, maybe you do. Have you experienced it? Leaving your body and looking at it? It is mind blowing. You're like, oh my gosh, that's me. And you did it on purpose, right? The first time it happened to me.
Is there a silver cord? I gotta know.
I didn't see a silver cord.
Some people say there is.
There are a lot of people talk about it. I never saw it. I looked for it, didn't see it. I feel like I
looked around
felt
for it. It's not there.
I was like, no.
Where is it?
But okay. First time it happened, the interest started with Insidious. It's weird because it started in such a dark place. I saw that movie and it was super dark, but it's about a kid who basically gets caught in the astral realm because he was lucid dreaming, astral projecting on accident, right? So I was like, oh my gosh, is this real? So I go home, do the research, dive into it. It is real. The government knows about it. People are doing it every day. People are making videos. So I try it. 2 months of trying it, I finally get it. And I thought I messed up. So what you have to do is you have to lay so still and be so aware that your body falls asleep, but your mind stays awake. Okay. And now looking at the science, this is us entering theta states. Okay.
Theta.
Yeah. Theta, which is hypnosis for those who don't know. Anyways.
Where's theta at on the scale?
So it's beta or gamma, beta, alpha, theta, delta. So it's right before sleep.
Sleep's right below it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So that's what you mean.
Yeah. So it's in that state where you're hyper suggestible. But anyways, you lay down and you fall so still that you get to a point where you can leave your body consciously. But if you move, you got to restart. It takes like 30 minutes of pure stillness, which is hard because right before you break through, you get itches. You feel that urge to move, and that's signals sending from your brain to your body saying, hey, you still awake? And if you don't respond to them, then it happens.
There's like a controller, like you're still there, like Netflix.
Exactly.
Continue watching?
Exactly. Okay, so if you lay back and do it, I twitched. And then I was like, oh man. So I got up.
Yeah.
But I didn't get up with my body. I got up with my ethereal body, my spirit body, whatever you want to call it. and my TV's right in front of me. And I thought I did it, but then I see a black figure in the TV, and it was in a suit, and it started crawling out of the TV, and it looked like Slender Man, and I was freaked out. So I try to get up and like run away, but instead of getting up, I rise through it, above it, and then I rise to my ceiling. And then I look down and my body's still there. The being is gone. And then I consciously explore. I see my parents. I see my little sister. And then I go start flying around. So what I'm saying is you can do this, and everyone has the ability. It's about learning how to do it. Like you were saying, formulas. And I have had some of the crazy experiences doing this. So for example, just the other night, this was crazy to me. I wake up in my dream, look at my hands, I count my fingers. This is how I know if I'm dreaming or not. And I had 10 fingers on one hand. I'm like, okay, I'm dreaming. So I was like, I don't want to explore Earth. I want to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I fly straight up, past the clouds, into space, and I'm suspended in space. But then I can't move anymore. I'm suspended, and I'm looking at the stars.
Is the Earth flat? I got to know. What'd you see up there?
I don't know. I was looking at the stars, though, and they all burst into this written text that I had never seen in my life. And I'm just curious about it. So I go back down to Earth. I can't fly anymore. I wake up and I do my breath work. At the end of my breath work, I always ask, what is my higher self telling me right now? And it basically said, follow the green. What? What does that even mean? So I was like, follow the green. Usually it's like stand in your truth, share your message, stuff like that. But today was follow the green. So I'm looking for signs, nothing. Until I get home and my daughter is chewing on oracle cards. My oracle cards I haven't looked at in years. I open it, and the one she's chewing on says Star Child, and it's written in green. They're all written in different colors. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is it, right? So I read the meaning, and it basically says your soul is from another star system. I was like, what? And it says your star family will send you care packages from home in your old language. What are the odds of that? What are the odds of that? You know what I mean? Like, that's just
taking that one in there.
Mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. Wow, dude.
I know that was a long story, but I wanted to share it with you.
No, that's good, man. I'm thinking about that concept, and I think the original place, as far as I know, the origination of that is the Law of One. They actually call them wanderers. You know, the Law of One is a whole different. Yeah, the Law of One is a whole different ball game, and it talks about different densities of existence. You basically have different bodies that are activated depending on your density. So basically, you could think of that as your vibration. And the way that they put it in Law of One is that your energy centers are activated to a certain amount, and they call that balancing the energy center. That's like one of the biggest parts of the Law of One in terms of how can you actually practically help yourself. Because it's very dense. It's very dense. So that reminded me of Wanderers, and a couple different places I've heard that is Dolores Cannon. I've heard that in Dr. Michael Newton's work, Journey of Souls, which is the first podcast I did for Universe Game on going over his work. And I think they call them explorers. Basically, they said each soul, or he documented, really. Because that was when he regressed people into this is very hard to understand, but you got to understand that time is simultaneous outside of this. It's kind of like there's a part of your awareness that is in the game, but there's also a part of your awareness that's outside the game. Just like if I'm playing a video game, part of my awareness that knows that, you know, there's a game time in the game, like in our world that we're in right now, but there's actually another time that's outside of the game time of the earth. And so it's like those two were split in order to come here. So he's like talking to that part that's still either still in the spirit world. It's not really still in the spirit world, but it's like a time where they were, like pre-incarnation, usually pre this incarnation. And a lot of them will have different specialization. So if you're, according to Dr. Michael Newton, if you're one that comes from different planets, then you would be an explorer type soul, one that moves from dimension to dimension. That's what Law of One would say. And some people call them star seeds as well. I feel like that's kind of cliche.
Me
for
too.
me.
Me too.
And that's why you've probably never heard me say the word starseed on this podcast until now.
Me either.
And that's why this topic is hard, because I feel like a lot of people can get lost.
Yeah.
In thinking, I'm this being who does this. And maybe they are.
Yeah.
But then they forget that they're not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. I mean, they might have been, but that can empower you, but that can also take you away
100%.
from this life.
Yeah.
That
card that you just said, it says your soul may feel like it's doesn't belong here, but know that your mission is here on earth and you were sent there for a reason. So remain rooted in your life here so you can live out your service.
There it is.
Boom.
There it is. It's exactly.
We all came here for a reason, and it's
you think we all came here for a reason? Every single person?
I think everything happens in divine order. I think there's a greater intelligence to it all. And even though little things may happen that doesn't make any sense on the small scale, there's a micro and macro to everything. And I feel like we're all little pieces in this divine working system.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Wait, I got a question for you. If you had to give me 3 truths from your book, and you can only share 3, what would they be?
Truths. Well, truths are tough because it's relative, of course. I'm never one to claim I have the ultimate truth.
Your truth.
Things that I find true to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much in that damn book. You are the same as everything else, because everything at its core has the same properties. And that property is a love that we can't comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
And we can call that love, but it's like that doesn't even really...
Language loses it.
Yeah, you've probably experienced it if you had psychedelic. A lot of people say in plant medicine they have that experience of pure oneness. Some people call it oneness, source. I call it non-duality. And so let's just say this. Number 1 would be the ultimate truth for me is that everything is you in a different body.
Mm-hmm.
That, simply put.
Yeah.
Number 2, I think the first secret is good. The first secret in the book is 10 Secrets of Awakening. The first secret is this one. It's very simple. You're in a highly advanced energetic video game.
I love that.
That's
what a beautiful way of putting it.
Yeah. And number 3 is tough. There's so many different ways and avenues that I could go about this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I had more time to think, I would probably mind it more, but I'm just not going to mind it. I would say one of the ones that's sticking out to me right now is that I really dive into nobody can cause you to suffer mentally. Nobody or no thing outside of you. That you can still be in a state of love. As hard as this might seem, because it is hard, and I'm not there. You can be in a state of love, and this is what many masters and gurus, and especially in Eastern philosophy that we find, they've done that. They've achieved that. They might have to go to monasteries and be alone to do it, but they've done it. And they might come out of the monasteries. And,
Bodhisattva.
Right? We call them certain Buddhas, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the ultimate state of human existence is an unconditional, this is the word I can use best, an unconditional love.
Yeah.
And that you can maintain your state no matter what happens.
Boom.
Not always going to be easy, but it's doable. And I think that's a goal to move in that direction. It's hard when people say self-help. But really, you do have to help yourself, the true self, see itself.
Yeah.
By exposing the false self.
Gosh, that's so powerful, bro. That's what I'm all about too, is radical responsibility. Because when you stop blaming others for how you feel, when you stop blaming your past for where you at, You call back your power. Now it's on you to create the life you want. And that's a beautiful thing because it's no longer the blame game. Now you see that what you choose to focus on is keeping you stressed out. Now you see that it's not a lack of resources, it's a lack of your resourcefulness to create the life you want. And when you take that radical responsibility, you move into the creator instead of the victim. Right?
How do you not feel guilty about that? Because
about what?
Just when you say to someone, I know this is hard for me to hear at some point, that you don't have the resourcefulness. How do you take responsibility for that without getting into a state of guilt or judgment upon yourself?
That's hard. It's hard, but I feel like people need to hear the hard truth. Because, for example, what I deal with in my breathwork courses, my journeys that I go through, I deal with deep trauma. People who have been through sexual abuse, people who have been mentally, physically abused as a child, deep, deep trauma. And I let them know it is not your fault that happened to you, but it is your responsibility to deal with it now. Because if you let that pain live inside of you, it's going to rule your life for the rest of your life. And a life living in survival isn't living. It's just waiting to die. Not everyone will truly live. Everyone will die. Not everyone will truly live. And this moves me on a deep level. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is because I know there's better ways to release that pain. That's why I'm so passionate about breathwork, because pain is an emotion. It's a trauma. It's an energetic blockage that you store in your body if you don't actively feel it and process it. Okay. And when you do this breath, think about it as cleaning out your home. Okay. So if you've been stacking up emotions and trauma for 10 years, you're not going to go into a house that has been accumulating dust and dirt and trash for 10 years and just sweep it. You're going to come in with a shovel and throw that shit out there. That's the intense breath work I do. It's because you're opening up and clearing that stuff out. So this is how it works. Oh, this is exciting. Are you ready, Nick Z?
Yeah.
Okay. So the breath work I teach allows you to get out of your prefrontal cortex, your monkey mind, your over analytical thinking every day, stressing yourself out mind, right? Takes away energy from that. Then you move into your limbic system. Okay. Your limbic system processes time and emotion, but it doesn't process time in a linear fashion, just like you were talking about, right? So it processes it all simultaneously. So when you're breathing through these emotions that are unprocessed, now you can basically simulate that experience and allow yourself to feel it in the way you needed. If you needed to cry, if you needed to scream, if your body needed to convulse, to release that energy, that pain, that emotion that you held in you, now you can process it in a way that is productive and allow yourself to release it. Because when we feel, we heal. And though it may not be easy, though it's a deliberate state of stress, on the other side of that is always the next version of you. So I tell people, take fucking radical responsibility. Sorry for cussing,
No,
but
you're good. You can.
I'm passionate about this.
Yeah.
Take radical responsibility for your life, because nobody's going to come save you. As hard as that sounds, nobody's going to do the work for you. If you want to change your life, you got to change you. And that's where I think breathwork is the most powerful, because it sits at the base of everything we do.
Fascinating.
Yes.
Super interesting.
Yes.
Thinking about that last sentence, and nobody's going to save you. There's been so many people throughout history that have waited for God to save them. Or in the spiritual community, it's waiting for ascension to save them, right?
We're all
it's not
going to the 5D.
And it's not I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Those that have been around, I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm not waiting to be saved either.
Yeah.
This religion is based on being saved as well. So I think that's one of the biggest ways to take someone's power away.
Yeah.
Is to say that they need something outside of them to save them.
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And so when it comes to our lives, when you say nobody will save you, how do you save yourself?
Boom. Look at that.
That's the question.
That was the moment. How do you save yourself? Wow. Okay. I take it back to this because I don't know all the truths, just like
course.
nobody does. We
Yeah,
all
we're-
have a piece of the truth. I believe in we all have puzzle pieces of the truth. But my truth is you return to the basics. This body, this earth vehicle for the universe, the game,
Mm-hmm.
has certain toggles: movement, water, breath, sunlight, putting your feet on the ground. If you can master those things, all the stuff that comes up, all the stressors, the pains, the emotions, all of it that comes up will be a lot easier to handle if you take care of this vessel in your mind, body, and soul. Okay, so I believe in saving yourself. A lot of people are trying to add knowledge, bring more stuff in, learn more stuff, but the majority of people's problems stem from their inability to let go. Let go of the limiting beliefs, let go of the trauma, let go of the pain, let go of the people who are no longer serving you, because you are a reflection of your environment. Okay, and when you can let go, I think the saving, the feeling good, the in alignment just happens. You know what I mean? Think about this raccoon. Raccoons, you can trap them without a trap. All you need is a vase, put a little snack in the vase. They will squeeze their hand in there. They will grab it, but they won't let go. They will trap themselves because they're unwilling to let go of the food. So that's us with those emotions. That thing that happened to you, that pain, you hold on to it so deeply because you identify with it and you trap yourself. But if you want to save yourself, just let it go.
Let it go. It sounds
So
easy. Sounds like the easiest thing, and everybody could do it real quick and just be like that.
No,
But maybe it's not.
easy. It's not easy, but
Yeah.
Look for the stuff that works, right? I spent 7 years of my life dedicated to the stuff that works. I tried affirmations. I read all the books, all the self-help. I did all the little
Did
techniques.
you need that though?
I did,
Right.
because it
That's one
guided
thing.
me to my journey.
So that's why I think knowledge in itself, while it can seem useless when you think about the basics of it's simple,
Yeah.
sometimes we need that journey. I needed that journey. I'm still on that journey to understand things on a greater level. And then you almost realize why it's worth it. Because I think that's what we're starving for. We're
For
starving
sure.
for the meaning why it would be worth it to do these simple things. Because if I told you, just love everybody and love yourself, dude, come on.
Doesn't
Like,
make
what
sense.
are you doing?
Yeah.
And then you're like, that sounds like the stupidest thing ever. Why would I do that? All these people harm me. And then if you study all these different traditions or, books, podcasts, you listen to good podcasts,
Yeah.
you start to realize that, oh, it makes sense to do that. It's almost like, Jessie, my partner, she said one thing to me that has always been really profound and always stuck with me. And it's from the work of Dr. David Hawkins and his books and all these things. And he used to say, well, actually, let's just keep it very simple. He made these levels of consciousness. And one of the biggest jumps is from logic, intellectual reasoning to love.
Yeah.
And I remember she used to tell me that one of the biggest transitions you can make is in how you actually get to love is to realize why it's logical to love.
Oh, why is it logical to love, Nick Z?
It's logical to love because even if you don't have firsthand experience of it, see, this is the thing. What is the three truths that I said earlier? That everyone else is you.
Yeah.
If you just understand that from a intellectual standpoint, that would make it logical to love everyone else because they're just you. And also, if you study works, so you understand the veil that we come in, we forget, you understand that that's actually happening, then it's logical to have compassion for others. So that's kind of the jump,
Yeah.
And, there's different paths, many different masters throughout the millennia. I'm sure no reason to love. It just feels good.
Yeah.
That's why you do it, just because it feels good. And you can feel that that's truth, that love is truth in itself. So that's why I think it's logical to love in a couple of reasons.
Yeah. Let's dive deeper into it. Like, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Dr. Joe Dispenza goes into the science, the epigenetics, and how when you cultivate elevated emotions for certain extended periods of time, You can literally improve your immune function. You can now trigger genes that take away inflammation and disease and allow you to tap into the life where you're in love with it. That's enough right there. If you can heal your body by cultivating elevated emotions on a consistent basis, why wouldn't you do it? Tony Robbins says something that I think is so huge. Get in your head, you're dead. You got to get out of your head and into your body, right? Movement is medicine and emotion is energy in motion. So when you change the way you move, change the way you breathe, you change the way you feel. When you change the way you feel, you change the way you think, which changes your actions. You were talking earlier about we're all waiting to be saved. And I think one of the biggest and most trending things is the law of attraction. I love the law of attraction. I know you talk about it. But what I don't think a lot of people talk about is the law of Goya. You know that one?
No.
Goya. It's get off your ass and go do something.
Just look straight into the camera.
Make it happen. Like even in the Bible, they say faith without works is dead. I'm not religious, but I think it's spoken about through all text. Allow your actions to align what you're sending out into the universe. And I think that's huge. Want to go a little deeper in that? I want to hear what you have to think about that. Do you think we have to do stuff, or do you think we can just think it, feel it?
Do you mean for things to come to us, like law of attraction?
Yeah.
I've played around with this for years. I have. I've seen people, Neville Goddard, for example, will tell you that you don't have to do a single thing.
Yep.
Because Neville Goddard is more about, for those that don't know, he basically, the idea that he goes with is that Jesus Christ is your imagination, that the Christ is the imagination.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the truth, then you can he created out of thin air.
Yeah.
Using the same principles that we can create our life.
Yeah.
And he did it. So, from his point of view, get it. I've seen, for me, there's a level of embodiment that has to happen. And I think even thinking it or feeling it is an action.
Mm-hmm.
So,
boom. Yeah.
It's really, to me, this whole particular topic is about, you could break it down simply into masculine versus feminine energy. Mm-hmm. The masculine is going to accomplish through the typical Gary V style of
17 posts a day.
Right. Or you got, trend bologna sandwich dudes who are out here on steroids, just, working out for 7 hours a day, and then they get what they want.
Yeah.
And then people think that is how life works. It must work that way because if you go to the gym, you keep working out, then eventually you'll get that way. Mm-hmm. But then now we realize, and I think there's a lot of science that's coming out, that it doesn't have to be. You don't have to work out. You don't have to tear everything. That's working out is a whole different conversation. But I find that the same principles don't apply to every area of your life. Mm-hmm. But I think there's an amount of action that needs to be taken in order to embody it. It's like, I can think and feel like I'm good at speaking on podcasts, but can my lips move how I want them to move? Yeah. Sometimes no.
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel there's a level of movement that needs to be had, a level of embodiment through the actions that we do personally. Oh. So if we're doing things, I think Neville Goddard is absolutely correct, though, and I do think that it is possible to create with a minimal amount of action.
Me
absolutely,
too.
But I think that it is very difficult.
Yeah,
and I'm probably not there.
We're not good enough at it yet.
Right, it's a practice. It's a practice.
Yeah,
it really comes down to belief. I think it comes down to belief. If your logical mind is not very thick, and you can just believe things very easily, you could probably do that. But for me, logic is like a thick book that you're trying to cut through and you can't, So if in my experience, I've had to do things, but I think that it is absolutely a thing. And I think many people have realized, that's why you look on different platforms and law of attraction or manifestation or these create your reality hashtags have billions with a B of views because, there is going to be BS in it. Absolutely. And there is a lot of it, but there must be, if so many people are resonating with it, that you can control what happens in your life when it comes to the non-physical. You can somehow, with your intention and how you think and feel, somehow things can happen. You can call it an echo. You can call it the quantum field if you're Dr. Joe, right?
Yeah.
You can call it manifestation. You can call it a billion different things. But to me, I think, you can even think of karma is kind of manifestation.
100%.
It's just quick it's actually slower. Karma is slower. That's what a lot of people think. Karma is slower, but it can be very quick. You see something happens to someone like right after they do something that's stupid. You're like, that's karma. It's like, it can be that quick. So I think Eastern philosophy actually does have karma in it. Most of them do. At least Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, these other ones. And that is kind of saying the same thing. That things happen that are organized in a way that we can't understand. And all we have to do is kind of set the intention and follow through with, like you're saying, with how we think and how we feel, because that's how we interact with this world. That's our perception. And you said at the beginning, you're talking about how the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your emotions. And if that is the case, then we've got to address that first.
Boom.
I think that's the essence of manifestation.
Yep.
Is actually feelings. I don't think it's thinking. I think people think it's thinking.
Feeling all day.
But it's feeling.
All day.
That's why I think when people say, you look up the law of attraction, I did for my book.
Yeah.
I looked up the definition. And the definition is when you focus on focusing on what you want attracts it to you. Yeah. Essentially. But when we think focusing, we think thinking.
Yeah.
But I think it's really about feeling. I think it is there, but
focus in one of the things I always talk about is focus equals feeling, right? If you wake up and think of everything that pissed you off the day before, you're going to feel that. But if you think about all the things that make you grateful, how you still got a body and a bunch of people died in their sleep last night, and you got another chance to create any type of life you want, that's a lot more empowering. And the only difference in those two emotions is what you put your focus on. So like we talked about, that thinking feeling loop, that's one of the most powerful things. And I asked you, do you think you have to do stuff for the law of attraction? That's an action, right?
Yeah.
And it's like when you move from that feeling of empowerment, of gratitude, that adds momentum to it, right? And when you have the wheel spinning, it's a lot easier to create things in your life. That's why I think it requires a certain amount of action. I think focus, feeling, breathing, and meditating is action. Even if you're sitting still, you're doing something.
If you're doing nothing, you're still doing.
Yeah. It was kind of a trick question, Nixie.
I think I passed the trick question. I think I kind of nailed it a little bit, which is good. But what do you think in terms of, what do you think the amount, if you had to give it a ratio of physical, let's word it a little bit differently, physical doing versus creating the life that you want with how you think and feel?
80-20.
80, which one?
80 thinking, feeling, rest action.
20, okay. Yeah.
Taking action from an inspired place. As somebody who likes to wake up, spending a literal hour every single day on basically creating an elevated state of body for me, it helps me throughout my entire day. Like I said, so look at this, guys. For anyone who's stressed, if you're listening to this right now, this is something you could do at any moment to take away your stress. Me and Nick did it right before the podcast. I want to show you guys. So it's a double inhale through the nose and an audible sigh. Now we've been doing this since we were babies. You're crying. You try to stop. What do? You go, right?
Yeah.
So if you can do that when you're stressed out and not wait till your body does it for you, you can take control of your emotional state. So everyone who's watching this real quick, we're going to do a double inhale through the nose and an audible sigh. Okay? In. Let it go. 2 more. Out. 1 more. Let it all go. Dropping the shoulders, relaxing the forehead and the muscles behind the eyes, and letting go of the jaw. So notice how you feel right now as opposed to a few moments ago. Now, if you can change how you feel, you change the way you think. And if you change the way you think, you change where you act from. And I think if you can do this on a consistent basis, you'll be able to manifest things so much faster. That's why I always return it to the breath, because you hack into your feeling.
Okay. So as someone who works with the body, a lot of people, and myself, I found this to be the case, but I want to hear your thoughts on it. A lot of people will tell you when you get deeper into it too, that, well, actually, let's just start with this. Where do you think, where is the question, where are emotions stored?
Emotions?
Yeah.
I think they're stored in the subconscious, and I think the subconscious is the body.
The entire body?
It's the body. Yeah, I do.
So the brain or the body, like, is the brain a part of that or no?
I would say the brain is more the conscious mind. But I find in my work when people are having deep cathartic releases through our breathwork sessions where they're literally screaming, they're crying, their body is fully convulsing because of this energy that has been stored in their body. Some people get pains in certain areas, and usually that's where an energetic blockage is. If you study Eastern culture, they have something called nadis, and nadis are just basically energetic channels that run all throughout your body. And for somebody who doesn't know what that is, think of your veins, right? You have blood running all throughout your veins, but when you get a blockage, people get blood clots, they die. Okay, that's the same thing that can happen with your emotions. When you go through a painful situation, you breathe in and you lock it up, right? You go through that painful situation and you don't release it until what? You let it go with the exhale. So when you trap that energy and never address it, a lot of times you trap it down here. And that's why people breathe so high into their chest. They don't breathe low into the belly where that pain is stored. For a lot of women, trauma from birth, right? Trauma from stuff that they hold in their womb. And then when you breathe and you let it go, you breathe into the belly, up into the chest, you allow it to come to the surface and clear those blockages. So I believe in that emotions are stored in the subconscious on a cellular level. In somatic healing, they say our issues are stored in our tissues, right? And all sickness comes from an imbalance in the energetic body first. So how do you cleanse the energetic body? With energy, prana, breath. And yeah, that's what I believe.
Okay.
What about you? Where do you believe it is?
It's a good question. I've been thinking about how we don't even really know that we're here right now. We don't know if we are here. What's here? If there's anything here.
Yeah.
Like, how are we playing? Just kind of like, I got my laptop here. If I'm playing a game, I'm not actually in the game, but I'm projecting my awareness into the game.
Yeah.
So how does that apply to where it is?
Oh.
Like, for example, is the energy that we're talking about that's blocked, is it actually is it outside in the projected awareness? That brings up the question, can the soul be harmed? And I think it can be. I'm not one to say that it can't be harmed. People will say that the soul, and by harmed, I mean in a way where you interpret and you have blockages in your soul as well as in the body.
Yeah.
So when we talk about things that are stored, what I'm actually the idea that I'm bringing forth is more that maybe when you're tapping into this, you're tapping into the field of energy that isn't even here, but it still exists and it's still blocked.
Yeah.
It can't be created nor destroyed, just transferred. So you're transferring that energy out into the field. I think we're surrounded by love.
Yeah.
In the sense that I think space itself is love, which is interesting to think about.
Yeah.
But when we think about the space in between things that holds and binds everything together, inherently it would have to be unity of some sort, or else things wouldn't be able to do anything. It wouldn't be held together in itself.
Yeah.
People call this ether. They'll call it the unified field. Call it whatever they want.
Into the space.
That could be, right. I know what you're talking about too. Behind. Right.
It's chest.
Oh my God. I used to talk so much shit. What did I used to say?
Man, it gets
behind your nutsack. I used to say that to me and Jesse. I mean, I love Dr. Joe, but oh man, I used to, the way he does his meditation sometimes is just, it works.
Golden. It gets you there, but when you got to get past that.
It's funny, right? You know, we might have Dr. Joe on the podcast eventually, and I'm just saying, that, hey man, we're just having some fun out here. We know about some fun. Dr. Joe can have some fun every once in a while, right? So, what were we talking about? we're talking about space, dude. It's like, if you think about, this is how I see infinity. Infinity is, we talked about it, divine love, awareness. Everything is awareness. You could even say that space has awareness, but we can't understand that because space can't become aware of itself. And so essentially what bodies are is a way for, or a vehicle or a controller for you to become aware of yourself. And yourself is like you or me, but the body allows me to perceive you
as a separate.
Right. And that's the whole game of the universe in a sense, is to eventually you can complete the game by realizing that. Mm-hmm. It's like you don't have to at any point. You have infinity. Mm-hmm. It ain't ever going to end. You got as much time as you want, right? That's why I think, you know, as wild as it might seem, that's why negative entities do. I think that's a reason why they do what they do, because they know that they can always redeem themselves eventually because they have infinity to do so.
Yeah.
There's actually in the law of one, it also talks about how, you know, law of one, everything is one, very simply. But it also talks about how, this is actually an interesting topic, that the energetic power, they asked, if someone, because in law of one, you can polarize either positive or negative. Mm-hmm. And then that's how you move into what they say the fourth density is. You're either 95% or 95% or more in service to yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's the negative path, or you choose the positive path, which is 50% or more in service to others. And they asked, and that's kind of the background you got to understand to know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So and the question that they asked, because it's law of one is all in Q&A format. Mm-hmm. So they asked the question, if someone polarizes negative, would it be harder for them to go positive as someone who didn't polarize at all? Or would it be easier? Mm. So let's say someone is inherent, what we would think of as archetypically evil in our reality. Is it harder for them? Do they have to go all the way back? Because if you think about it like a magnet, you've got at the north, you could say positive and south negative. Do they have to go all the way around, all the way through the magnet to get to positive? Is it harder or is it easier? And the answer might surprise you. They said that it's easier.
Yeah, I would think so.
Right.
Keep going.
And it's because when you think about a magnet, you talked about electromagnetism earlier, that's the nature of our reality, is what we can call it. I need something, this box here. If the magnet, if you look at any sort of magnet, where do the filings?
Top and bottom.
Usually top and, exactly. So that's where the power is. You can have power if you're negative. You will do things with that negative power.
Yeah.
Just as if you're positive, you have power. Mm-hmm. Where can we see this in our culture? Star Wars, right? Jedi and Sith. You're not powerful if you don't have access to the force of electromagnetism. I think that's one of the most, Star Wars in itself, the concept of the force is one of the most truth hidden in plain sights, if there ever was one. And it directly lines up with law of one. It directly lines up with many, many different teachings of the nature. There, in Hermeticism, there's a principle of polarity. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. So it's not like law of one's the only place that's ever said this.
Yeah.
And most people kind of will intuitively understand before, spirituality will try and a lot of times try and distort people from not thinking like this, even though it is true. There is positive and negative.
Yeah.
People will try and say in our reality that, oh, it's not. It's there.
Yeah.
But it's just one end of the magnet.
Boom.
The truth is the whole magnet, positive and negative.
It's all one.
It's all the magnet.
Yeah.
But the magnet extends forever.
Okay.
And so when we talk about power, when we talk about creating the life, if you've created a life where you feel like guilty, you feel like shame, I'm not excusing inexcusable behaviors. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be consequences for people. But you and anyone can change into, you can tap into this love. You can tap into this field. You can polarize positive.
Boom.
And I guess the last thing I want to say about Love One, because I don't want to go full Love One this whole podcast, because I did that on the Indigo Bruno podcast, and I was just like, too much. But it said that in Love One, we can, if the whole planet were to can polarize positive in one instant, it would be possible. The same concept as in the Bible. If you had the faith of a mustard seed, you could move a mountain. Isn't that what it is? Something like that. The same concept. One being can change the world. We see that through many different cultures. There's been this archetype, in Zoroaster, Buddhism, Buddha, Hindu, Krishna, Christianity, Jesus. One being can change the world, but we can all do it at once. It is possible that we were all to polarize positive. And I think that's why the world is doing what it's doing. I think it's designed to be this way.
I do too.
I'm not one to say that it shouldn't be this way. I think it is just like you play a hard video game. It seems like it's meant to be hard.
Yeah.
I did a video a while ago by Dr. Hawkins saying, if you didn't have an Earth, you'd have to create another one. Because this is the maximum opportunity for karmic growth for everyone.
Yeah.
How do you see Earth right now when it comes to the
cycles? Everything's a cycle.
There it is.
It's a cyclical nature. Like he was talking about the magnetism. And I'm going back to it. You say you might think people who are more on the negative side, it's harder for them to get positive. But the way I see it is because you have experienced the darkest of the dark, that you can experience the highest of the highs. Usually the people who have been through the most trauma and the most pain are the most service driven because they know what that is like. They have experienced it and they're able to bring that knowing of what it's like to the light. So for the people who are still there, they have a direct connection to them, right? And because it's all cyclical, because it's all one, it's in cycles. And right now, the world may seem like it's in peril, right? The world may seem like it's dying. Like earthquakes.
Stuff's supposed to happen in 2 days from now. September 24th, there's a bunch of people freaking out right now.
Yeah.
My prediction is that nothing's going to happen.
Like usual.
Yeah, like usual.
Yeah, like usual.
And every time we see prophecies like that, most of the time, nothing. It's just humans scared, trying to predict things.
But how much does that affect it? The fear. So I was thinking about like this.
True.
When an earthquake happens, let's say the earth is a being, right? And an earthquake happens, the earth is just saying, do a little shake.
You've been practicing that? You do that pretty well.
100,000 people die. We're like, the world is ending. Life is over as we know it. But if we're all infinite beings, that's just a little shake for the earth. Part of its cycle. Maybe it's stretching. Maybe it's shaking off a sickness. It's going to be okay. We're going to be okay. This life may be temporary. It's okay.
You're just going to leave the body, just like you're stop playing the game for a little while.
Yeah, but it's like when you see it like that and you understand that, you can enjoy it a lot more. Instead of looking at everything that's going wrong, allowing the program, the TV program to control how you're feeling inside, it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more enjoyable.
Speaking of fun, dude, I was watching Lord of the Rings. Rings of Power. Rings of Power just came out.
Okay.
And I was watching it.
All right.
And I was actually in the forest around here in Texas. And we were just walking. I think it was a couple days ago now. But I told Jesse, I'm like, I'm going to do that eventually. Like if reality is infinite, if there's an infinite amount of timelines, if we're taking the many worlds interpretation, quantum physics, then everything that we can think of as a reality is happening. So if I'm watching Lord of the Rings, I might go do me some Lord of the Rings. Who's to say, let's just think about this. Who's to say that you couldn't, after this life, choose to go into the Lord of the Rings universe?
Yes.
Who's to say that there's not like a loading screen where we can choose what reality we go in if there is a multiverse?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we chose this one because we wanted to come here.
Yeah.
We wanted to play a mental game. This seems like a mental game right now. Might turn into a physical game more, but right now it was physical. This specific time period that we're in is pretty mental.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's different types of worlds, just like you might have heard of I think it's Kardashev scale, the types of civilizations, type 1, type 2, type 3.
Yeah.
I think there's also the type of worlds, like there's a physical world, then it turns mental, then it turns spiritual. I think that's why a lot of people can't really grasp these concepts of spiritual yet in the mainstream, if we look at all of society, because they're so stuck on even the physical.
Oh,
you know?
Can I say something real quick?
I mean, that's why you're here to say some things, man.
No, like
say as many things as you want.
What you just said, so many people are stuck in the physical, unable to see that it's mental and spiritual game. This analogy really hit deep for me. So most people are looking through their lenses, even though they're fogged up, right? They got a bunch of stuff on them. And they're like, this is how it looks. This is what life is like. But they're so busy looking through their own frames that they think that's the truth. But somebody else who may have perfect 20/20 vision sees it as a beautiful, angelic realm. But this one has shit all over it, right? So if you can realize that this is just what you see through, and you can become the observer of what you see through, your mind, your programs. If you can become the observer and realize, oh my gosh, that's not how it actually is. That's just how I'm seeing it. That's when you step into true growth. When you realize you are not the voice of the mind, but the observer and the listener of the voice of the mind, that's when life really starts to happen. Because then you realize you're not your programs. You're not the pain you went through. You're not your name. That's just Nick Z. That's just a title that was given to you at birth. And when you can do that, that's when you can step into the higher elevated states of living. So sorry. I appreciate your patience.
I mean, dude, you're here to talk as much as you want. So you can cut me off whenever you want. And I just got to cut you off and say that it's Zai.
Zai, dude. I've said it
guy
4 times. Nick Zai.
It's fine.
Dude, why didn't you stop me earlier?
Because we were in the role and I didn't want you to get off topic. But you know what that made me think about was this. It made me think about this concept of water. And that when we think about the way that we perceive reality, I mean, what are we saying now? There's so many people saying you got to drink filtered water. You got to drink filtered water. It's almost as though when we come into this world through our childhood, it's almost like, I don't know if it's on purpose, but you could say that the world taints the water within us. And so we must, you could even say through your practice is breath. The breath is a filter.
100%.
For our perception. And it feels like, because it's hard to tell someone, and I think you're 100% true, by the way, but that the way they're seeing things is wrong, because it's like, this is the way I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
It's not, even on a cellular level, your cells have become tainted with the perception, because the perception, as we've talked about, affects your body. So it's like it's in your body. So you've got to filter your body out, just like you got to filter the water you drink.
Oh.
If we were to take an outside look at the things we consume, we would probably say, mental things.
Yeah.
Not safe for human consumption.
100%. If you lived with your inner voice, your inner critic, and they were your roommate, would you accept the way that, or maybe not you,
toxic.
Maybe you're very nice to yourself.
No.
Right?
I mean, sometimes I'm not. I think we all deal with that.
Yeah, like most people are so mean to themselves that it's not even the world that's messing with them. It's their own voice. And if you wouldn't live with that roommate, you got to know you can change that. You can shift that. But, oh my gosh. I was going to say something.
While you're thinking of that, for me, it's when my inner voice, it's about how I look. It is specifically because I've had, since I grew up, I was 315 pounds.
What?
Yeah.
For real?
A lot of people don't know that.
Well, you look great now.
Thanks. But my mind doesn't say that I do.
Yeah.
It's always like, I can't tell you, even recently, I've been dropping weight down again, but I lost control to the mind in a sense for a little while. And I've been dropping down again, but there'll be so many times where I'm like feeling creatively inspired. I'm ready to create. And then I look at myself. I'm like, oh, your face is too fat. So that's a thing.
Yeah.
Just, on an intimate level.
Nah. Yeah.
When we talk about this, I deal with that.
Yeah.
And I think that it would be hard to find someone that doesn't have
That.
a voice saying something about you don't look good enough, especially if you're making videos. Yeah, I'm making videos 24/7.
Yeah.
But
Your glasses
about
still
anything.
have thick Nick. Your glasses still see thick Nick.
that's what Jesse's telling me.
That's 100% what it is, bro.
Yeah.
And that's your belief system. You're not that. You're not this body. This is universe the game.
I know,
This is your
dude.
avatar,
I'm not saying that it's
bro.
always there.
No, I'm not.
But it comes up.
Yeah, it definitely
comes up.
comes up. No, I totally feel you, bro. On an intimate level, guys, I think I have a crescent head. You know how
What does it even
check
mean?
it out, check it out. You know how like the cameras can mirror and it switches, and you always see yourself this one way, and you're like, this is how I look. If I hit mirror, it's like, boom.
So do we have your good side or bad side right now?
I don't know. And I'm happy I can't see it because I'm like, crescent head.
I was going to ask
totally
you if
see
you
a
liked the
crescent
angle
head.
earlier, so I'm glad I didn't.
Oh, it's golden because we all have this inner critic.
Yeah.
And when you realize you are not that voice, but the observer of that voice, you step into a new life because now you can isolate it, become the observer and say, that's just a cloud passing through. That's not who I actually am. Who I actually am is an infinite being of light and pure love.
Mhm.
And when you tap into that, the message you're bringing to the world, Nick C, is changing lives. Millions by now. Think of that. And if you weren't to put yourself out there and be comfortable being uncomfortable, you wouldn't have done it.
And that's a good point because it's tough because sometimes you want to be nice to yourself or
Yeah.
your mind, but sometimes you just got to tell it to shut the hell up. You know what I'm saying? For me, sometimes it's like, yeah, it's a cloud passing by, but I'm like, bitch, get out of my way. That
Yeah.
ain't true. You know what I mean?
What you said to bitch get out of the way with? The same voice that told you you're a sack, right? It's the same
It
voice.
depends.
You say shut up with the same voice that told you you're not good enough to do this video.
It depends on how you look at it. You could say that the conscious mind isn't the subconscious if it's a subconscious thought. So it could be subconscious. The subconscious, because that's what you're saying. I'm still in thick Nick. Never heard that. But now I'm going to think about that in my free time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a dude. You're doing
But
good.
anyways, like when I see myself, I think it's a subconscious version of me back then. So it's not me now that's saying it. And I don't think that I'm necessarily even the voice that says that I'm beyond even, like we've talked about. I'm beyond even the voice. The voice the voice that I'm speaking with in itself is a character.
Yeah,
That's just part of the game.
it is part of the game.
You know what?
It's
I'm
an
not-
interesting ass part.
You know, because we could talk about levels and levels of what's you, what's not you, what's not you,
It's
what is
all
you.
us.
Yeah. But it's like we can differentiate in order to benefit from it.
Yeah.
Because if I differentiate, that's why there's different paths. There's a path of love. There's even the path of negation. The path of negation will take you really far. You know, that's a lot of Buddhism is the path of negation. It's I'm negating that I am not this body. I'm not this spine. I'm not this. I'm not this world. And then when you negate enough things, you come to the realization. And they won't even tell you what that is in Buddhism because they say we can't tell you what it is. You have to experience it.
That's like the Tao Te Ching.
Right.
You can't talk about it. You can only talk around it.
Because
Okay,
it's
I
limiting.
remember what I was going to say. Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
You said tapping out into alternate realities.
Yeah.
So in my lucid dreaming experiences, I have awoken as an elf. An elf, and I found myself on an island where there was all these beautiful, nice orcs. They weren't evil. They weren't dark. They were extremely friendly beings. So one day I was exploring with them in the jungle. In the jungle, I found a scroll. I opened up the scroll and instantly my eyes shift to black. And then all of them did this thing where they looked at me with bright blue glowing eyes and they said, like this tongue. And the tongue basically brought me back from the scroll I just opened, which was the ancient darkness that they had been separated from ages now, because they were initially influenced by the Dark Lord, by the darkness, right? But they got away from it, so they were good and harmonious. But what I brought back to them, they said, why did you do this? And it was just like, whoa, in a past life, I was an elf. And now since that dream, I've had meditations, more dreams, ayahuasca trips, where I tap into my elven self. So as far as tapping into other realities, I think 100%.
You've been there.
It's there.
That's interesting.
What do you think about dragons?
I think there were dragons on the earth for sure, in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Lord of the Rings could have been on the Earth.
Yeah.
We just call it different things, and the geographic locations were probably different.
Yeah.
The shape.
Yeah.
Not the whole shape. I'm talking about where what did they call it way back in the day where everything was one landmass?
Pangea, is that it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So there could have been times where it split and then it was different and then it moved around. Thinking about that makes me realize that this thing has been going on for a really long time. To think that humanity has only been around for the past 10,000 years or so is just like, I really doubt it.
Yeah.
I really doubt it. And there could have even been more. People think the first human civilization that we know about is the Anunnaki and all the Sumeria, right? That's Sumeria, I'm pretty sure. Top of my head. I don't know why I'm missing that. I've studied that a lot. But we think that Mesopotamia, Sumeria, these are like earlier ones. Yeah. That was a start because that's all we have evidence of. But I want to remind you of, not you, but everyone, of course. But you too. Think about the very beginning and think about now. It's like we can't find evidence of these civilizations. Why can we not find evidence? What would happen if right now everything got wiped out like all these movies are saying? What would be left? What do we have written down? Do we even got cave drawings? No. Would people even know that anything, if after everything eroded, of course? I mean, we're talking big. If there was a flood, imagine if there was a flood.
Blood and fire.
What would be left?
Molten lava.
Right.
Nothing.
So if the flood went away in 30 years, you could come back down here and find cave drawings from 2,000 years ago and be like, oh, that was the last time we were advanced.
Last time civilization began.
Right. And it's like there could have been whole civilizations in between that we have no evidence of because they had types of technology that we do where we don't write things down very much anymore. I mean, some people do, but they don't write it down in a way. They're not putting it in stone. You're not drawing things in a way that would last for thousands of years. That's more what I mean.
Yeah. We lose our phone. We lose memories from years if you don't upload it to the cloud.
That's right.
Right? And it's like we don't write anymore.
Mm-hmm.
My grandpa told me one of his biggest regrets in life is not keeping a daily journal because as we age throughout life, our memory fleets us. I think that's one of the most powerful things. You don't journal, dude? I journal every day, and it's one of the most powerful practices because you forget who you are. You forget how far you've come. You forget the hard things that you've been through that make you who you are today. And when you can look back and remember that you made it through those hard times, that empowers you. That gives you the strength to keep moving, keep that momentum rolling. Because sometimes it feels like the whole world's coming down on you and you feel like you're not good enough. You're not worthy. That's how I felt.
Yeah, me too.
Before I started sharing all this stuff, I'd studied it for years, but felt unable to share it because I didn't feel like I was enough and didn't feel worthy.
Same.
And the reason I preach, basically, all I talk about is breathwork is because that's what changed it all for me. It brought these childhood things that I experienced to the surface of not feeling enough, of feeling out of control of my environment and not being able to do anything about it. So I carried that into adulthood, feeling like, oh, I'm not enough. People won't listen to me. Oh, I can't control. I can't create my life. This is just how it's going to be. This is how it's always been. That's a belief system. Your entire life is BS. It's belief systems, right? And when you're able to consciously become aware of it, but also feel it and let it go, it's the most beautiful thing because you realize you're not your experience. You're not your past, but you're a creative being who's able of creating anything. And that right there just shifted it all for me. I cried like a little baby for like 10 minutes. And it was just like, oh, like intense cries. And then after the situation, I remembered the childhood memory in which those feelings stemmed from. But I didn't have an emotion that was tied to it. And a memory without emotion becomes wisdom. That's where it just shifted for me. Nick Z. My bad. Zai. Dude, I've been saying it for so long. I can't believe that. I think even on the last podcast, I said it like 5 times.
That's okay, dude. I expect people to get it wrong because when you think of Zai, you think it would be spelled Z-A-I.
Yeah.
instead of Z-I-E.
I think that's way cooler than what I was saying.
That's the way she goes, dude.
Nick.
Oh, it just reminded me of, what were we started out, you were talking to me about, there it is. Talking about yawning,
everybody. Okay. So guys, the best kept secret from neuroscientists is this one action that we have been condemned of doing in society. It's yawning. Neuroscientists can't find one action that positively affects more parts of the brain at once. But they tell us, don't yawn, that's impolite, that's not good. Because why? Because usually you're sleepy when you're doing it. But when else do we yawn? When we get exposure to light, when we're trying to wake up. So yawning on a scientific level taps you into your parasympathetic, your relax and digest response, right? But it also releases dopamine, which allows us to get tasks done, which triggers oxytocin release, allows you to build deeper connection with your loved ones. Then you start releasing GABA, a neurofunctional energy neurochemical. And then you got nitric oxide. For those of you who don't know what nitric oxide is, it's a vasodilator. Opens up your veins so you can get more blood flow, which means less inflammation. And yeah.
You can go faster in your car. And
nitrous.
You know how long I wanted a car with some NOS in it, dude? I used to play like Fast and Furious and the video games, and I used to drive cars, and it used to be a big thing for me. I used to be really big into cars. Yeah. I had a BMW, like an old BMW, not a new one by any means. Like
what is it? A stick?
A one coupe stick. Yep.
Yes,
that's
sir.
right.
Let's go.
It was a 2001, and it was like 2017 when I had the car. That was, dude, my dream. But now I just go through phases.
Really?
Now I'm just like, I just want a truck, dude. I just want to be a mother trucker. That's all I want to do.
Texas rolling off on you, baby.
It is, dude. It's a jacket. I don't know what it is. I've wanted a truck for years and years and years, because I want to do these podcasts with a truck and a camper.
Ooh, that'd be sweet.
And that's been my goal. And we just stayed in a camper of one of Jesse's friends for a couple of weeks, and it was good. But yeah, NOS.
Yeah. I mean, nitric oxide is like NOS for the body. For anyone who does bodybuilding or weightlifting, you take a supplement called nitric oxide and it opens that up. For people who have problems getting it up, they take Viagra. What does Viagra do? Release nitric oxide because it allows more blood flow to the places that need it. So you can tap into this on purpose. A fact about the body that most people don't know: your brain mass is only 2% of your entire body's mass, but your brain utilizes 25% of the oxygen. So if you're not breathing right, you don't feel right. The reason depression and anxiety are on a rise is because most people aren't breathing right. You can eat like shit, but as long as you take care of your breath, you are still going to feel better than you would if you weren't. Okay? So look at it like this. The breath has the ability to hack into your nervous system. You hack into your nervous system, you change the way you feel automatically, instantaneously. So right now, if you're breathing shallow, breathe into your stomach. Breathe into your chest. And on the exhale, consciously relax the muscles. Into the stomach, into the chest, relax and release. So when you're doing this, keep breathing Nick Zai.
There it is, dude. Nailed
it. So as you keep breathing in this rhythmic tone, right, what you're doing is you're sending signals to your heart. That's saying, okay, we feel good. Your heart is connected to your brain. They're intimately connected. So your heart says to your brain, okay, we are no longer in a stressful state. Now we can relax. Now we can let go of all the stress we've been holding on to. So then you send signals through your vagus nerve to all the rest of your organs that will now function in harmony. Now you're digesting better. 80% of your serotonin is produced in your gut. So now you're releasing and flooding the body with feel-good chemicals. Just by changing the way you breathe, you shift your entire state of being. And the way you change your life is by changing your habitual emotions. So Nick Zai, how do you feel? Just a few seconds of breathing.
Feeling good. Feeling calm. Feeling like I could yawn. One could say.
Did you know that sociopaths don't share the basically shared trait to yawn together? You know, when I yawn, you see somebody yawn, you feel like you need to yawn. Sociopaths don't share that trait.
Well, since I just didn't
And he
yawn, does that
didn't
mean I might?
yawn.
Yes,
We know
I-
Nick's dying.
I feel like I need to, but then it like went away. I feel like it comes and goes.
It's because we subconsciously block it. Think about that. It starts to come up, and usually, like, you're talking to somebody, you're like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna put it back down.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I really try hard to not yawn during podcasts because I don't want the person to think I'm bored.
Yeah, but really, your more brain parts of your brain are getting lit up, so you're able to connect deeper.
Maybe that's the control mechanism they put on us
That's exactly what it is.
so that we don't yawn.
Okay, my friend, I'm going to use the restroom. I'll be right back.
We'll be back, folks, in just a sec.
Mhm.
Actually, can I put this down
Sure.
here just for a second while I'm thinking? That was actually the first thing is at some point I came home and I told him I was like, I don't know what's going on, but my body feels like it's eggs. And he's like, eggs. You know,
That's
and
right.
at that point,
Non-judgmental.
the other yeah. And that's the other thing, you know, is that when we got together, we were both vegans, so there is also that aspect of, okay, yes, of course you want what's best for your partner, but then there's also a level of convenience of your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so there was also that fear too.
Mhm.
Like, okay, if I start eating meat and eggs and stuff again and he doesn't want to, like, we're gonna have to make two separate meals,
Meals, yep.
basically. And but it all worked out. He kind of just had a response to start too, and it was rather spontaneous. But
Yeah, I mean, she started exploring, and I'm like, this makes sense. You know, as it went along,
Yeah.
you know, the more you know.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of felt the same way as you, where I started to feel real good for the first year or two.
Yeah.
And then all your nutrients get depleted, and you're like,
Mm,
there might be more to this. And then, you know, she went through that journey, and I watched her do it, and we figured it out.
and same thing with your hair. Like
If
your
you look
hairline goes
close,
back.
like if you look close right here, this was starting to go back,
yeah.
but you can see there's little hairs
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah.
New baby hairs.
That's right. Hey,
Yes,
it's a progress,
sir. Let's
dude.
go.
Especially if you have long hair, it looks really dumb if you got a 5 head.
Yeah.
So we're still
Me,
4.
I got the 5,
No,
baby,
you
all
don't.
day.
No, you don't. You're still 4.
Think he was born with the big head.
Hey, man, get that collagen. We have collagen in our drink every morning. We have for like a long time, and that's what I think. We were talking about this the other day. Like, why is my hair growing back a little? It didn't grow too much, like recede too much, but just a little bit here. Like the front seemed fine, but like the sides. And I think it grew back because the collagen for hair, skin, and nails, and all that, and then also stress.
That's a
What
big
we
one.
talk about. I think we can't really differentiate. I can't say it was just collagen. I think that's what a lot of people would like to do.
Mhm.
Like dairy people would probably be like, yeah, collagen. That's what. But it's like also if I look at my life, I'm much less stressed now
Mm,
than I was.
yeah,
You know,
that's a
Would
good
you say the
feeling.
same? Yeah, we're definitely much.
I feel like that's the biggest one. Everyone's so focused on what they're eating, what they're drinking, what they're doing, but it's like it doesn't matter how alkaline your diet is. If your emotions are acidic, which literally they are, prolonged states of stress creates acidity in the body and disease, you're not going to feel good. So that's why, you know what the longest, the best determiner of life longevity is? Don't know what it is? It's lung capacity. So even the people who were smoking their entire lives because they breathe deep, they were still living until 90 to 100, right? But the people who are breathing shallow, short, and stressed all the time, they don't live as long. So that's the number one determiner for life longevity is
I've never
lung
heard that.
expansion.
I've
Yeah,
never heard that.
pretty crazy.
I need to breathe more.
Breathe deeper.
I talked about that in the first podcast we filmed.
Yeah.
We filmed. For those that didn't know, if we didn't mention this, I think we kind of talked about it a little bit, but we filmed an original one, but it got messed up on virtual. I think it got messed
It
up.
was for a reason, for
Yeah.
sure. Because this has been way more better.
Yeah, it is. I think it is for sure.
doesn't surprise me about the life longevity though, especially because in our culture too, it's not just about lung capacity and breathing, but the way that we sit and our posture, it restricts our rib cage. And so it's not even just how deep are we breathing, how much are we breathing, but can we actually expand our rib cage in a way that allows for
Boom. Like,
Very-
where are you breathing,
Yeah.
right? Because most people think the heart is the pump for the body. Heart is basically the secondary pump. The main pump is the diaphragm. And if you're not breathing outwards, you see how I expand outwards instead of upwards? Then you're not getting the proper blood flow to your body. So here's some facts for you guys. Breath, the exhale is responsible for releasing 70% of the body's biotoxins. So you got pooping, peeing, sweating, and the mother load of it is from exhaling. But it also is responsible for 85% of weight loss. So you lose 10 pounds, 85% of it was breathed out.
What? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you could be doing all the cardio, eating all of the right, but if you're not breathing right, you got some shit stuck in your body. 100%.
So are you proposing we could lose weight just by...
Breathing. Yes. I literally have people tell me,
Like Nick's coming back and he's saying I need to breathe more. You're talking about thick Nick earlier. I don't know if you heard that.
no.
We were talking about how I was overweight and he nicknamed it Thick Nick.
Oh my
So now we're just
gosh.
making jokes.
yeah, we were just talking about how like our old beliefs of who we used to be still linger around. So like when you look in the mirror and if you felt like you weren't enough at this one point, you might be doing amazing in life and everybody else thinks you're doing great, but you look at yourself and you're like, I'm still not enough. Right? And same thing with him. He's like, he looks amazing. Look at him in his jacket, this flowy, beautiful hair, and he still sees the old him sometimes. Right? And that's what we were talking about. And that's why I named it Thick Nick.
I mean, you've seen that more than anyone with me.
The way that you've gotten stuck in the past with that.
Yeah. And still do.
Yeah.
What
Like
do you...
this morning when you said, I'm just feeling insecure about my face.
Sometimes
And
it
I
just
just looked at
happens,
him and
man.
I said, stop it.
And I did. I did stop it. It just happens sometimes. So, a lot of people don't want to talk about it because they try to be like, especially people that are like more popular, they just want to come off a lot of times as like this perfect person who have done, they never have any problems because they associate problems with people judging them. But I think really what happens is when you share your problems and your struggles, it's not really a problem. It's just like your struggles and things you're going through. It doesn't actually, at least for my audience, it doesn't, in general, when you're dealing with people that are in higher levels of consciousness, people aren't going to judge you. They're going to relate to you. They're not going to judge you. They're going to feel how authentic you are and how you're actually a person. You're not just this bot,
100%.
who's just saying things that you don't really know them. So that's kind of why.
No, that's huge, bro, because vulnerability opens you up because that's where we connect. All the stuff that we hide in the shadows. And if you bring your shadows to the forefront and you can talk to all those people who have gone through the same thing. Like I always talk about feeling like I wasn't enough to share my message, like I wasn't worthy of sharing it. And I know so many people relate like that because they have something they want to share with the world so bad, but they feel like they're not enough. And that feeling right there will stop you from living the life of your dreams. So just know, everybody who feels that way, courage isn't not feeling fear. Courage is feeling the fear, feeling the pain, feeling the not enoughness, and continuing to move forward in the face of it. And I think that's what people need to realize because we all go through our own shit. It may look good on the outside, but it's not. It's not all rainbows and sunshine.
Bars. Here you go. You want your drink? Here. I don't know if it's too hot. Still.
Oh, such a beautiful couple.
For those that don't know, this is Jessie, who we talked about earlier. She hasn't made that many appearances on the podcast because she is self-proclaimed not ready yet. So she will make an appearance soon. We talked about filming one here, but she's doing a training this weekend here in Austin. So probably after that, we'll have you on, and we'll just do a long episode, just me and you, talking about life.
Yeah, it really hasn't. It's more about the timing hasn't been right.
Yeah, you could say that.
It's so funny how when you are around somebody all the time, kind of almost take it for granted, like, oh yeah, we could do the podcast anytime. So it never happens. It's like I grew up in Arizona, and you would not believe the amount of people who live in Arizona who have never been to the Grand Canyon.
I believe
Because in your mind, you're like, I could go next
I'll
weekend.
go.
It was
Yeah.
me. That was me. I lived in Arizona for a year, and I went to school for kinesiology, an internship. I never went and the whole time, and I left, and I never went.
Yeah.
But then I went back and we went to the Grand Canyon for my birthday
Mhm.
this last year for the first time. And it looks like it's fake.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
I've not.
Gotta go,
It's
man.
the law of familiarity. That's what it is. The reason most relationships die is because of that right there.
Yeah.
You stop seeing the beauty and the intricacies of the person right next to you.
Mhm.
Right. This dude knows the entire law of one by heart almost. And that's like,
That's actually false. I don't know book 3 very much at all. I mean, I've read it, but I don't know. I don't know.
But he's just a vast, expansive knowledge, right? And you have this deep knowing about health and connectedness to your food. And I'm sure because y'all both know each other, knows that y'all don't dive into each other's knowledge as much.
No.
But when you see the beauty in each other and you can reconnect to that, oh my gosh, the passion gets reignited. Speaking of passion, you want to add passion in your life? Do breath work together. Stare in each other's eyes and breathe simultaneously. Your electromagnetic fields will then merge, right? And then all of your energy centers will then align and stuff starts
Is
happening.
there a specific technique or breath work that you recommend? Specifically
Yes.
for couples or something like that?
Specifically for couples. So, like I said, each emotion, each experience has an associated breathing pattern. So before you even touch each other, or you can touch hands, stare into each other's eyes and you breathe in the way of pleasure. Like if you're having a great day, right? Like where you're just like, oh my God, my life is so good. If you do that together, you will activate centers in your body and feelings of your body as if you were going through a sexual experience, but it's not. It's not sexual, it's intimate. And intimacy is one of the most beautiful things about life.
We actually did that the first time that we met in person. Do you remember? Do you want to talk about
2 years
let's
ago.
hear about it.
2
Let's
years
hear
ago.
about it.
what happened? He's like, oh God.
Yeah, no,
We
you're
were-
talking about,
we
wait,
were-
hold on. You're talking about,
In the
you,
cabin.
you can watch this on YouTube, by the way, on the Nick's Eye podcast channel. There actually is a vlog of us meeting in the whole experience of us meeting.
Okay.
So if you want to watch
I want to hear it.
right there, well, I'm saying you
Yeah,
can
so
see
he's-
what it looks like as well. But what she's talking about is that she was going through some stuff with her.
No, so it wasn't even that. It was after that when we were sitting together and we were making eye contact, facing each other, and then we had this whole past life.
Oh yeah, we had like a past like. Oh, did I spill that on you?
No.
Is it hot? You okay?
It's all good.
I didn't spill that very much. Sorry. If I spilled a lot, I would have felt real bad. But I think, are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
good.
So we had like this past life. The most real past life regression that I've had so far actually happened.
And it was
As
spontaneous and it was crazy because we were both having this vision. And then one of us started sharing what we were seeing. And then the other one was like finishing the other sentences about what
Yeah.
was happening.
Just shit you can't explain, man.
I
You know?
I understand. I feel you.
And so what that past life was about that we both experienced was a Japanese
What?
past life.
Y'all are- Okay, keep going.
So it was Japanese and you know, there were specific things that you would see. Like I would see the fields and she would see the fields and they looked a specific way because, you know, if you've looked at Japanese
Yep.
culture, that the fields look completely
Yeah.
different and almost look stacked.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
If you studied that. So I remember we watched like I don't know if it was on National Geographic or like later we watched like a documentary about Japan. We were like, looks like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
'Cause
the
it's like-
first like 5 scenes were like, no, not that one, not that one, not that one, not that. And then
it was
Nah.
specific.
And then there was like a very specific scene that panned out, and at the same time we were like, that one.
Right.
That's amazing.
And because, you know, anyone, you know, past lives are so hard for me because it's like you can make shit up, of course.
Yeah.
But it's like if people are advanced enough in their awareness of things, because there's people that say there's NPCs and we can get in, that's a whole different conversation. But NPCs aren't able to become aware of their thoughts. So what I'm proposing here is that there's a level of some people I think just intuitively have this. This isn't something you have to develop. I think you can develop it. But you can really tell a difference between when you're remembering something or your mind's making it up. And there's actually a distinct difference.
Yeah.
So I think for that, it was very clear that
The inner knowing.
yeah, you couldn't make that up, but you can't also explain that to someone who's logical and at least in the previous kind of way we viewed society, that was frowned upon. But I think, part of Universe the Game, right? The Universe Game podcast.
Shout out Universe the
right
Game.
behind me. If you're not following, subscribe. Yeah, what are you doing, brother, sister? But I think that part of it is just opening up that this is possible. These things are possible. And I think a lot of times, sometimes it can happen without you being open. And I think we could call that things that were planned to happen, like near-death experiences. You might be able to experience that type thing. And you might not have been open to it until then, but I think a lot of it is like, are you open to it even happening in the first place? I think there is a distinct difference. Sometimes if you're not open, I think that might stop it from happening, but I do think it can happen otherwise.
The reason I got so tripped out when you said Japanese is because my wife and I, hey, shout out Layla, love you, baby.
We gotta get Layla here. We could have had a 4-person.
Oh, shut up. But anyways, we had the same thing, right? We did this breathing before I even knew what we were doing. I was like, babe, just breathe with me. We're just going to stare into each other's eyes for an extended period of time. All right. So we're doing this breathing again and again, but it's in a dark room. So we get to the point where we're sharing the same vision. And I see a village, Japanese village, and I ride up on a horse and she's just a woman in the village. And we make eye contact, instant connection, just like it was when we met at a dance festival. So we see that life play out. Then it switches over. We're in the woods, a different life. We're walking through the woods on a fully moonlit night. And she looks back at me. And I told you I was Elvin. Her ears go, and they show. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know you. I've known you for lifetimes. And again, we choose to meet each other, to come into contact, to live life together. And we never know how it's going to happen. You may know before you come, but it's a great surprise when it happens. And that has continued to happen. I went to Peru with her. We did ayahuasca. And I saw us as hummingbirds, living life as a hummingbird. I was like, gosh. And it's like, you can't explain it to somebody who hasn't experienced it. But there's an inner knowing. We're like, we've known each other for so long. And it just makes me so happy when I think about it. And the fact, the little Japanese connection, I don't think that's a coincidence.
You never know. And I think there's a lot of stuff going on. I've always wanted to live in Japan a little bit, but sometimes it's really far away, and the practicality of it, doing what I do, podcasting, I don't think it'd be practical, but I definitely want to go visit.
Yeah.
I haven't been out of the US, for those that don't know.
Ever?
I haven't ever had a passport.
What? It's crazy.
Dude, I just make videos constantly, nonstop, and we haven't been worried about that. We've been trying to get to a place where we didn't have to be in the 9-to-5 matrix.
Yeah.
And, that was much more important than taking trips. So for years, years and years and years, me and Jesse, I went to a physical therapy internship and I was going to be a physical therapist and I decided it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
She went through the whole thing. She's a doctor. So she's done physical therapy for so long. So we've done the 9-to-5.
That's amazing.
And so interesting that, I don't know if we ever talked about
Way
that on the
more than
podcast.
9 to 5.
I mean, yeah, it's not, physical therapy is like many more hours than that. Yeah, especially because you're in a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole nother, working in a children's hospital, doing all that.
So working at a children's hospital, I find that children have access to the place that we talk about often. They say things that you're just like, what? Where did that come from? So have you had an experience working around children who are in that space where they just say things that blow your mind?
So many. I'm trying to think of a specific experience, but I would just say in general, because one of my primary areas working in the hospital was on the oncology floor. And, we often talk about the tragedy of children dying young and having cancer and having the struggles from an early age, and it doesn't feel fair. But what I will say is that kids, for the most part, who go through those types of experiences from a young age, they have such a wisdom and a surrender to their experience that touches everybody around them. And I don't mean to romanticize it, because it is very painful. There is pain and grief that come with it. And there's also, especially the pain and grief for the family. But it's interesting. I find that the child was often the one who was coping and was able to help the grieving family to cope with it and to find meaning in it alongside. So, you know, it's a difficult thing because when you're around that type of situation day in and day out, you know, you hesitate to tell people like, oh, these things happen for a reason, because you truly don't know what that feels like until you're there. But I will say there is a wisdom in that. Like the children definitely feel like older souls, or, you know, however you want to describe it.
Yeah. That near death, living on the edge of death always gives you a different outlook on life.
I said that to Nick the last time that we were near a hospital. We were walking on the perimeter of the hospital because it was close to a hotel we were staying at, and we were just going on a walk. And I was describing that there was this energy of being around a hospital where the veil between life and death is very thin, 100%. And it gives a very different feeling. And there was, I will say, this addiction to that high of like you said, when you are working in such a close proximity to death, there is a feeling of aliveness that doesn't come from mundane life that ignores death.
Yeah, because so many people don't want to look around it, right? They tiptoe through life safely to death while never truly living because they're avoiding it. But if you realize you are going to die, you're going to look back at your life at one point and you're either going to love the life you lived and did the things you love to do, or you're going to look back and regret. Which one would you choose, right? Because death is going to happen. We're all going to die. I think that's a beautiful thing because on the other side, we don't know what could happen, but I know it keeps on going. I know this from inner experiences. Anyone can tell me anything, but I believe in this on a deep, deep soul level because I've left my body. I've seen my body lying there, so I know
you're not going to die.
Oh,
because you just said we are all going to die. So
the bodies are just all going to die. But will they die? Because then they will just give life to the earth. And then the earth will give life to the universe.
That's why I wrote my book, Uninhabitable. The bodies become uninhabitable anymore.
Yeah.
Because they just transform. And they'll come back.
Yeah.
Transform. Come back. How long do you think this is going to go on?
The cycle?
Humans on Earth.
I think it'll go on until it's done going on. I don't think I can have a time for it, honestly. I think it'll go away, come back.
That's actually interesting because the last guest I had on, Law of Solace, he talked about how we're always going to be souls. And I actually disagreed with him. And I said that that's not the case. And he said there's always going to be an Earth. And I said, I don't think so. I think it's going to come and go. I don't know if it'll always be the same.
Yeah.
Do you think the universe will always be here? Or do you think it will end, come back, kind of like a heartbeat?
Yeah,
expand,
like that.
Contract.
That right there. Because when you break down the word, universe is one song. One song. Well, when do we feel most harmonious with each other? When we're at a concert singing together. Why do people love going to church so much? Because they're all singing the same songs, doing the same prayers at the same times. They're harmonizing and becoming one. Universe means one song. When you breathe together, you feel harmony, right? And songs, what do? They begin and they end. And I think that's how the universe will be. But it will always begin again. Always begin again.
Because what else is there to do?
Nothing. You can be in the nothingness, but then you're like, I want to hear a song again. Let's play the song again.
Right.
And that's universe the game.
There it is, folks. I feel like that's a great place.
Me too.
To end it.
Me too.
Where can people find you, man?
Okay. TikTok, Soul Freedom Breathwork, guys. Because if you want to live free, you got to set your soul free. Free from the tyranny of the mind. So if you want to find me on TikTok, Soul Freedom Breathwork. You want to find me on Instagram, Soul Freedom Breathwork. And
I was just making sure it's still recording. And he just, for those that don't know, he's just like, he's doing the snap thing.
Also,
at the camera, bro.
Guys, we have a transformational breathwork journey on the 25th of this month. If you have stuff that's been holding you back, limiting beliefs, traumas, pains that you've been storing, and you're ready to hit the next level of life, I'm guiding a 2-hour breathwork journey that will allow you to do so on the new moon of the 25th. anyone wants to do it, link in my bio. Thank
Oh.
you so much, Nick Zai. I was calling
Oh,
him
he
D
did
the
it.
whole time.
He changed it. All right, it's Zy, folks. All right, thanks for listening to today's podcast. We will see you on the next episode. If you're not friggin' subscribed on YouTube, consider it. Consider it. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I would appreciate a 5-star review. Would be amazing. We would absolutely adore if you did that. All 3 of us, right, guys?
Yes, 5 stars, please.
Right?
5 stars.
Other than that, drop a comment if you're on YouTube. You can always DM me on Instagram. I'll be around. And until the next episode, peace.